What's going on, you guys? This is New York Adventurer 1994 here, and it is Sunday, August 21st, 2022, and something's been happening with the New York Yankees lately. They are not the strongest team as they were in the beginning of 2022 season. They just started collapsing ever since July, and now they're losing like pretty badly now. They're either getting swept or they're only winning one game per series. Yeah, they're having a lot of trouble winning games right now, and if there's anything to blame for that, it's all those injuries happening. The Yankees have a lot of players that are injured right now, and some of them are probably out for the season. I might have to check the list again to see if there's some players out for the season, because this is a very serious situation right here. Do you guys want to know what their record is right now for this month of August? Their record for August is 4-14. That's a pretty bad record for a month in MLB. That's very disgusting. Especially because we're at the end of August now, like in 10 days or 11 days, and the Yankees hardly won anything this month. It's thanks to all those injuries, and they're hardly hitting any runs. And they're just getting destroyed out there. They really need to get their act together and have a good September if they still want to make the playoffs. It doesn't look like the playoffs are off the table because they still have a huge winning record, thank goodness, but if they have a bad August and September, those chances of them making the playoffs is going to be off the table. Or if they do make a wild card at least, and they still have these losing problems, then expect a very short playoff series this year. Expect a very short playoff year for them if they do make it. It's starting to become a if they make the playoffs. I know they have a pretty huge record, but it's gonna become a very short winning record if they keep losing. And they're gonna be like hanging off the playoff spot if they keep losing like this. So this is pretty concerning, and I know it's the Yankees and they're a pretty strong team, but even the Yankees could have trouble too. Their last playoff miss was back in 2016. Yeah, but the thing is, injuries happen sometimes in the MLB. Heck, a lot of times. I mean, a lot of teams deal with injuries year after year. But the thing with the MLB is that you could have a team that has a solid year one year and make the playoffs and possibly win the World Series, to a team the following year that deals with a lot of injuries and loses 100 games and only wins 60. I mean, 60 to 102 record, that's a pretty bad record for baseball. The reason why they would lose 100 games if they have a bad year is because the MLB has games almost every day, but they do have off days, and they get an all-star break too. Listen, as a Mets fan, I deal with this injury problem a lot. The Mets missed the playoffs for 5 years recently. They had a good year in 2015 and made it to the World Series, but lost to the Royals. And then 2016 they made a wild card, even with the injuries. And then 2017 they dealt with a huge plague of injuries and missed in 2017. Yeah, that's the thing with baseball. It's not like hockey where a team could be successful for 10 years and make the playoffs for that long. And more than one team does so. MLB is pretty different. You could have a solid team one year and then miss the playoffs for 5 years due to injuries. That's just how baseball is. A lot of droughts happening due to injuries or poor management, or if a team's hardly hitting anything. I mean, when the Mets fell apart in 2017, it got to the point where Terry Collins had to retire, and he got replaced with Mickey Callaway. Yeah, so don't think this injury thing in the MLB is a new thing. This has been happening for years, ever since baseball started. So, we really need to keep an eye on the standings, especially for the Yankees. We really need to keep an eye on what's going on with them, because it's not looking good right now for them. They look like the worst team in the MLB right now, even if they're still in first place in the AL East. Them and the Mets were the top 2 teams in the MLB, and I don't know what happened to that. But once again, it's with all these injuries happening, with these big names being out for the season, or up until a certain date. Like, they could get hit in the elbow and then they're out. So I will be keeping an eye on this MLB season for you guys, especially the Mets, because they're my team. And I will be keeping an eye on the postseason for you guys. But we really need to keep an eye on the standings now, because it's the end of August and there's only a month and a half left to go. Because the regular season ends this year in early October. I mean, the Yankees right now look worse. Even look worse than the Nationals, who are the worst team. I mean, the Nationals have been improving a little bit, but that team's not making the playoffs whatsoever. They suffered enough that their playoff chances are off the table. Even Oakland's been winning a little bit, but the Yankees losing is pretty unacceptable right now, especially because we're going to the end of the season. If they want to make the playoffs, they need to keep their head up. They really need to keep their heads up if they want playoffs, despite all the injuries. We really need to keep an eye on this season now, for all you baseball fans out there. So I guess that's it. And I know it sounds annoying that back in 2016 we keep talking about the disabled list. Well, guess what? The disabled list is pretty important. The disabled list helps show who's injured and who's not injured. I mean, if important players on the disabled list, chances are your team might not make the playoffs if it's out for a certain time. So, yeah, the disabled list is pretty important. I will be keeping an eye on this whole season for you guys. I'll be keeping an eye on the standings. I'll be keeping an eye on the injuries and everything. And I'm going to keep an eye on who's pitching. And I guess that's it. Bye.